Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Charging Stack, where we sit down with the people shaping the future of mobility. And today, one such person has joined us, Mahmoud Serour. I hope I pronounced that right. Please don't don't judge me.
It's very good.
CTO, CTO of BrightDrive. Uh, if you've been following the mobility scene in Middle East, the chances are you already know the company. It's one of the most exciting companies tackling autonomous fleets as products that operators can adopt today. And there are some pretty high level claims like level 4, which we'll touch on later, which is incredible. And Mahmoud himself is an incredible young person who's done so much. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's begin. This is Mahmoud, and I welcome you. Thank you for joining us at Charging Stack.
You are
Um,
most welcome. Thank you. I'm really glad of being here today with you guys, and hopefully it's gonna be a nice episode.
We're certain it will be.
Absolutely.
We have a nice set of questions we'd like to ask, and I think we'll have a nice conversation. First of all, uh, I'd like to ask you what made you go into autonomous vehicles. As I've already said, you're a pretty young person, and by looking at your CV only, it's like since you were a small kid, it's like you've been saying to yourself, okay, I'll be the number one guy in autonomous vehicles, and you just went for it. So how did that happen?
Sure. Sure. So back in college, like I co-founded a robotics team in Alexandria. This robotics team like took part in competitions internationally and regionally. So we used to compete in almost every competition that have been available for universities at such age. And basically, this really fueled my passion for autonomy. So my personal motto has been always that I want to use the technology to make a world a better place. And I have been always drawn like to automating things when I was really young, because I wanted to make people lives easier in general, and also trying to commercialize what I'm doing. So it is not like just a competition and we are competing with other teams, but also trying to commercialize what I'm doing and helping be making the life of people easier. And this this robotics team I co-founded in 2015, and up till now it is around 10 years. It's still there. It's still competing in the universities. And basically, the good thing is like each year, all the graduates graduate from the university who have been like working on that team. You see the difference in the skill level and the experience they have. In around the 2017, like autonomous driving was still really in the early phases, so you don't see many companies working in the autonomous driving domain. You didn't even see the cases or the situations or the problems with autonomy in general back then. And I was always fascinated by like the DARPA grant challenge in the US. So basically, I have been following a guy called Sebastian Sohn. So he's considering himself the godfather of autonomy or self-driving vehicles. So I have been always fond of watching his courses, his online courses in Udacity, and watching the DARPA Grand Challenge. And professionally, I have spent over like a decade in system and software engineering, from powertrain, brakes to autonomy in general. And basically, what I wanted to do, like the decision before building BrightDrive, was to prove that someone from the region can shape global autonomy. So basically, we saw a clear gap in the autonomy market today. Most of the startups was focusing on passenger vehicles without clear ROI, and it turned out that some years later, some of the companies who were only focused on passenger vehicles started to shut down because there is a lot of development effort that were needed. You cannot cover all the corner cases that will appear from deploying just passenger cars. There are no clear ROI. So we started to focus on making autonomy tailored for commercial vehicles and for fleet platforms, not just the passenger cars. So basically focusing on buses, trucks, off-road applications like seaports, airports, and so on. So basically, this fueled my passion on how I went into autonomy and how it related to my early stage in universities. And maybe one thing additional that I wanted to be a role model for all the engineers who are coming from the region, that this is not a rocket science. You can basically develop it yourself. You just need to be not I would say a hard worker, because personally I believe whenever that you are given the right opportunity, you will be always a hard worker. But basically you need to follow your passion and also do what you are good at. Because sometimes following your passion is not really following what you are good at. So basically identify the right reasons, identify the right path for your career, and basically follow what you are good to do and follow your passion.
Understood. So even if we're passionate about something, if it's not something that we're good at, chances are it's not gonna turn out well.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I never thought about that. You be
Yeah.
passionate about something, but really not good at it.
I mean,
A lot of people think
also
they can be
something
singers, but they
something you
suck at it.
mentioned that BrightDrive noticed the gap. I mean, BrightDrive is the company that spun out of Bright Skies, like the
Yeah.
parent company.
Yeah.
And so you saw this gap, and this was the the main motivator behind founding BrightDrive and assembling a new team, creating a new product.
Exactly.
Or awesome. So something I just want to to ask a subsequent question. Uh, Building an autonomy company in Dubai, in Middle East, in North Africa, how is it different than building it in Silicon Valley? I mean, you have work in Europe,
Yeah.
so you're not just doing work in Dubai, let's say, but still much is different than Silicon Valley. We can agree. So could you tell us what's so different?
Sure, sure.
Maybe the
So maybe,
regulations, the laws, the
yeah, maybe like a little bit background. So Bright Skies have been like an engineering service company since 2012. So it had a fantastic engineering talent, but was largely focused on services in general. The missing piece was building a dedicated product company focusing on autonomy and basically all the aspects of autonomy in terms of the platform, software, hardware, operation itself. And basically, large scale of fleet operations in the Middle East had specific needs that Silicon Valley was not addressing at that time. And the market potential in Middle East was very huge. So if we basically take us three examples between Dubai, Europe, and Silicon Valley in terms of building a company there. So in Dubai, you have a very supportive government, so it is pretty easy to build the company there. Fast policy execution, and you have a smart mobility vision in 2030. Yet they are really encouraging like deployment of large scale projects rather than supporting early startups. So if you have like some sort of an idea, but you still need some sort of like very initial investment, Dubai may not be the very good place for you unless you have a clear ROI in front of you, because basically they want to focus more on large scale projects. In you And to be honest, they are still working on the laws for or regulations for self-driving. They are maybe a little bit slow than Europe and Silicon Valley, but still they are in the process. And they are
yeah.
attracting a lot of like well-known companies in all of the like sub-industries of the self-driving. In Europe, you have a very strong regulatory or proving ground for compliance and safety, because Europe used to be like the place for like automotive in general, right? So you have all the regulations like the NCAP, the ISO, the VDA, and so on. All of this regulations governs the automotive in general. Yet the cost of operation and the cost of R&D is basically very high compared to other places. And today I see that in Europe, the support for early stage startups focusing on autonomy is really limited. So if you analyze the European market, you are gonna see maybe 2 to 3 companies working in each aspect of the self-driving stack. So you maybe have 1 to 3 companies working on passenger cars. Some companies already shut down its operation. Maybe one company or two working on shuttles. Maybe one company working on trucks, but not autonomy, but more of like remote operation. So basically, you don't see a lot of initiatives coming from R&D startups in Europe. And in Silicon Valley, it is really like world-class R&D culture, because basically their economy or their banking system encourages startups to start their operation, and even if they have lost what they have invested in, they were gonna have like tons of other startups where they can accommodate their loss. So basically, the banking system or the overall economy encourage the R&D in general. But sometimes you have like, if I'm taking the self-driving as an example, sometimes you have the culture constraint, because let's take like Cruise for example, or Waymo. So a lot of people in the US region was like against the self-driving deployment for a lot of aspects related to the safety, related to the operation. They are losing their jobs and so on. So Silicon Valley was really very fast in deploying autonomous vehicles. They have very strong R&D, but it came with backfire. So the people itself, or the culture, or the environment, was not ready to accommodate the autonomy. And maybe one lesson learned that from Silicon Valley, that always the self-driving companies have to share their data with the government, especially the regulations authorities, so that whenever you have the accident, you can analyze what went wrong. Is it because of the system? Is it because of the environment, and so on?
So we could say big cultural differences, big legality differences. So you'd say this is something that maybe you have an edge on. This is I mean this is something something we could use to prove that Middle East and North Africa are really something to invest in, something that something where we as humanity can go to develop latest cutting edge technology products. So it
I
doesn't
would
have to be anymore.
Yeah. So I would say right now we could have a Silicon Valley in regions of the Middle East, because you have the engineering talent, you have the engineering capabilities, but all we are lacking currently is like the investment, or I would say the ecosystem that can support the investment in early stage startups, and could believe in the ROI. So basically, you may like get your ROI in 5 years from now, but you will be really solving a very complex use case, and you don't have to wait for your like revenue in the next year or the next months and so on. So there are huge potential for like investing in deep tech companies in the region.
Yeah, but there is some kind of how to say it, a stigma about investing in companies in that region. We'll talk about this few minutes later.
Sure.
Marin, I think we according to our agenda, we how to say it, we have a few talking points we'd like to touch on, especially regarding smart fleets you're building.
Sure.
You're powering actually with BrightDrive. So please, Marin, take
Yeah, I
over.
would like to maybe circle back to the product itself, to BrightDrive
Sure.
itself. So where does BrightDrive deliver return on the investments? Is it in fewer accidents, lower fuel costs, or more uptime? What would you say is your like biggest advantage?
So I would say the biggest advantage right now is basically the predictable uptime. So solving the driver shortage by enabling round-the-clock fleet usage. So let's take an example. Like we have been discussing a project in a seaport here in Egypt. So basically, just to give you a very rough number, they have like trucks operating in first mile delivery, and right now they have almost three shifts for each truck, and for each shift you have a one driver, right? And right now they are operating around 20 hours per day, right? They are operating in a seaport, and the operational driving time, so the time that they can drive, is only 3.5 hours. So out of 20 hours, they can
Yeah.
only drive continuously for 3.5 hours. A lot of time is usually wasted in the brakes of the drivers, the efficiency of them. Some accidents because they usually since they have continuous shifts, they may sleep at the driving. Also the up and down time of the maintenance of the fleets and so on. So I would say basically the number one visible ROI is the uptime itself and the operational efficiency. For the operational efficiency because of the driver and also saving the energy costs, but it is not really big compared to uptime unless you are operating on a large scale or a large area. And the last one is the fewer accidents, of course. The reason why I mentioned the fewer accident at the last because like whenever you ask anyone who works in the autonomy, the first thing he will mention is safety, fewer accidents, so on. But to be honest, until now, there is like a huge claims about safety in the market, but I believe no one is really addressing them in the right way.
Y-
So it is
Yeah.
nice to have to build an autonomy for the safety use cases, but let's be like a bit more clear. The main ROI out of autonomy for the use cases of closed area is basically the uptime and the operational efficiency.
Mm-hmm. So what would you say then, going back to autonomy of the fleets, about trucking, about, you know, high load deliveries? What would you say, what do you think is going to scale faster, robotaxis or fleets in the
So
future,
today,
in your
based
opinion? I know it's a
based
tough
what
question.
yeah. So today, based on what I see in the market, like I would say 2 years ago, there have been tons of robotaxis companies or software companies focusing on robotaxis, and what we can see right now, either they begin to shut down their operation or they begin to shift their operation. So everyone at the beginning started to claim that we want to develop level 4, level 5, and then they started to reduce the autonomy level, or they changed the operational design domain completely. So if we are we are not considering Waymo, because I see Waymo and Tesla are in complete different league because of the data they have been gathering since tons of years. I would say basically the fleets in controlled ODDs, campuses, depots, fixed bus routes will make the problem much more solvable versus the robotaxi that needs to solve every edge case. And for me, the fleets will deliver a tangible business value or a tangible ROI compared to robotaxis. That's why I see the fleets for sure will come much more faster than robotaxis.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of makes sense when you say if I have a fixed bus route, and if I have 10 routes, and if I have 2 buses per each route or 3 buses per each route, it's easier to do that than create a robotaxi that doesn't have a fixed route, that doesn't know what's gonna happen in 200 meters, that doesn't know the average traffic density, and so on and so on. So I understand this. I see why you would say this, and it really makes a lot of sense. So to have fleets like bus fleets, delivery fleets, which already have fixed routes. So this is something that could explode. I mean, I hope not explode, but something also Marin and I were talking about today. Uh, just as you mentioned Tesla and how they're testing for years. We read a interesting article from Forbes,
What's the first, yeah.
uh, and it was about how they said that Tesla full self driving, their FSD, will be level 4, and it was a big claim. And when someone says we have level 4 autonomous driving, I don't buy it. I generally don't buy it and I'm a pretty cautious person until I see the evidence. So
I
Yeah.
think Philip
So
has the PTSD because we open a page
yeah,
about
yeah, and we
fatalities, with
there's a
self-driving,
website.
so it wasn't great
yeah.
looking at those numbers. It was
No,
not.
there's a website that tracks how many incidents a Tesla car was in, and
Yeah.
in which percentage of those incidents was the autopilot, the self-driving activated. And next to each incident, there's a small description of what happened, and the descriptions are wild. Like, the car was driving on a highway and it just steered off the highway and hit a tree. So how does that happen? So, I see that I think robot taxis are a bit of a problem that's not 2026, 2027, where we would see a final solution that would go on a huge global scale, but maybe something for buses, for trams, for, public transportation, maybe. But yeah, I had a small episode here on my own. I'm sorry. Yeah.
To be honest, I think people really misuse the word of level 4. So for them, or even for people who are marketing for the self-driving system, so whenever they see a vehicle that is driven by itself and has no driver in it, they will consider it as level 4. But the thing is, in order to be level 4, it is not only about the self-driving application itself. The vehicle in terms of the vehicle architecture needs to be L4 compliant. It is not only about the self-driving application itself, but only about the vehicle itself in terms of the vehicle architecture, right? So the self-driving application could be L4 compliant in terms of fail operational redundancy. So this means if the main application system or the main driving system has failed, you have another system to take over the control. But the vehicle itself should be L4 compliant. So this means you should have 2 braking system, 2 steering system, and based on the use case, you could have 2 powertrain system. So this means if for some reason the brakes of the vehicle is not functional, you should have an alternative way to brake the vehicle. If the steering column or the steering wheel got crazy for some reason, or the steering issue, you should have an alternative way to steer the vehicle. And right now, if we really checked all the whole market or the whole OEMs, you will not really see that they are considering having an L4 vehicle at all. So the vehicle itself, to have 2 brakes, 2 steering, 2 powertrain, it adds the cost and it adds the complexity. And that's why that is the main reason that the robotaxi companies really started to leave like the fake use of level 4 and started considering L2 plus or even L3, because the vehicle itself has to be ready for L4 autonomy, and not most of the OEMs are not considering having like redundancy in their operational issues for the cost and the complexity of the system and so on. So I just wanted to highlight on this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not just
Great,
software, it's the car.
Amazing. I want to ask you, this is not on the agenda, but we had a really interesting interview yesterday, also about autonomous vehicles. It was a company from US called Autolane. They're doing a curbside economy. Pretty much autonomous vehicle commerce, which is really interesting. And we were talking about, I asked him to pinpoint like his top players in the game, or maybe someone who isn't under the spotlight. So I would like you to maybe, if you can, other than your company, something who you are monitor regularly, you like their work, you like what they're doing, you think they're innovative. Can you like name maybe 1 or 2 names?
Sure.
Maybe they're not,
I would really focus on buses and trucks for now. So for buses, I believe one of the key players in the market right now is Adastek. So Adastek is a Turkish-based company. Their headquarter in the US, and they have many operations in Europe. And I'm talking about large-sized buses, so not shuttles. So I'm talking about buses that can have like more than 14 seated person and so on. So I really admire what they are doing because of their large scale operations, and right now I believe they are one of the maybe the top company in terms of deploying autonomous buses. So they have just released an autonomous bus in Switzerland. So this is really a very good company to follow. There are some other companies like Fusion Processing in the UK, but they still do not have like overseas deployment. And again, this is for larger scale buses. For shuttles, you have a lot of companies because they are usually operating on much lower speed and so on. For trucks, you have a lot of companies in the US. One of them is Kodiak. You have in Canada Wabi, which was founded by Raquel Ortsan, one of the pioneers in the self-driving industry. So basically, each company of those we really study to understand why they are in a success right now, or why they are in or they are failing, just to learn from what they are doing and see how we can adapt our business use case or technical aspects as well.
I mean, it's great for you to. I mean, when we talk to business owners, I am always interested, intrigued how they're viewing their competitors, how they are interacting with them, if they're interacting with them, how they're looking at their processes, how your guys are competing with each other.
Mhm.
Taking different approaches. So yeah, that's why I asked this question. I thank you for your response. It was really insightful.
To ask something about the Drive Auto, meaning your self-driving software stack. So for all our listeners and viewers, how would you picture it? How would you describe it? Is it like Android for cars? Is it like a control tower for fleets? How could we imagine your self-driving
Okay.
software stack?
So in a simple words, you can imagine it as the autonomy brain for commercial fleets. So basically, it is not a fleet management software, but more of autonomy stack that is built on several components. So high level, you have the first layer, which is the sensors processing. So it processes all the sensors, cameras, lasers, scanners, radars, and so on. And then you have the perception stack. So perception basically gives you or create an environmental model. So basically, where are the dynamic objects? Where are the static objects? The lanes, road marks, traffic lights, traffic signs, and so on. And then you have the layer which is localization, which is basically tells you where is the vehicle localized based on a specific reference. This reference could be a map, could be a global reference, could be a local reference. And then you have the bus planning, which basically takes the input from localization, the perception, and the user management, basically where the user would like to go, and generate a safe collision-free bus or collision-free trajectory. And the final layer is the motion control. So basically takes the trajectory and executes it on the vehicle. In parallel to all of this, you have the system monitoring to monitor the overall system. And go to the fallback in case of any failures. And you have the visualization of the overall stack. So basically, the visualization that is happening to the users or the passengers that are in the vehicle itself. So this is
Yeah,
like
so
a simple words with the Drive Auto.
So with another quick question, just to tie up with this one, uh, how would it look like when let's say a fleet operator comes to you, comes to BrightDrive and says, okay, I have a fleet of over 40 buses
Mhm.
and I want to make them autonomous. I use them in a single city on fixed bus routes.
Mhm.
How would that look like? How could a day to day look like for that bus company once it uses your
Sure.
software stack?
So maybe I will talk about the process high level, and then I will explain how does it look in terms of the operation. So in terms of the process, we usually start what is called ODD design. So ODD is operational design domain. So basically, we said with the fleet operator, we understand their requirements. We start to analyze the operation itself. We start to analyze the environment to see what kind of use cases we are gonna meet, what kind of objects the system have to detect, what kind of automation techniques we can anticipate and we can propose to the fleet operator. So basically, we start with some sort of analysis phase, so requirement gathering phase, and start to see what kind of sensors do we need to put, what are the sensor coverage, do we need a fallback or not, do you need a remote operator or not, and so on. And out of this analysis, we propose to go with a pilot. So basically, a pilot for a couple of weeks or months to assess the capability of the system. And basically, because in the fleet, you could have different vehicle manufacturers, right? So you could have a vehicle that is Mercedes, you could have a vehicle that is Volvo, and so on. So basically, you need to take an example from each manufacturer, or if it is small, you will just take an example to do the pilot, right? And then out of this pilot, you are going to demonstrate the drive-by-wire capability. So basically, how we can control the vehicles through autonomy stack, and you are gonna validate if your assumptions for the ODD is right or not. And basically, this would be the outcomes of the pilot phase. And the second phase would be more of like evaluate phase. So basically, you start if the pilot like has one car or one vehicle, the evaluate phase maybe could be on 5 or 10 vehicles. And basically, what we are trying to assess here is the operational efficiency. So did you really reduce the operational the uptime? Did you really increase the operational efficiency or not? Or there is still some gaps that you want to see? And the third one is the deployment phase where you are trying to scale the whole operation under like the fleet management system that you have done or you have proposed in the previous phases. What that would look like into day-to-day operation in general. So basically, this would be like automates the operation in defined areas or routes, extended operational hours, and cutting costs. On the vehicle sides, it processes the data from the sensors, localizes, perceives, and plans safe trajectories, and interfaces with the overall vehicle actuators. On the operator side, you're gonna have like some sort of a dashboard with performance insights, diagnostics, and maybe a tele-operation capability.
I mean, this sounds, the way you're saying it, this sounds like you're changing the job descriptions of the bus companies. Like, you know,
You,
you
you
know,
know,
it's,
you know, I, You know, you have really used the correct word because back in the use case I was mentioning earlier, there was a conversation, an ethical conversation. So, is it really okay that we are like replacing the drivers and so on? They will lose their jobs. And then I said it is not really replacing their jobs; it's just like changing the job position. So
yeah,
instead
you're
of
changing the
making
job
them
description.
exact, and that's what AI is doing right now. So AI is not really replacing software engineers, but they are basically replacing uh, maybe their mentality, their job description. But it is not like a replacement, but more of a change or adapting that to the new world requirements.
Yeah, yeah, I can completely agree. This is what happened at our company. So, I mean, no one got fired, of course, but our how to say day to day is changed because we can do a lot more. All the stuff that we had to do manually, that was, time consuming, but you just have to do it. You don't have to do it anymore. You can automate it. Maybe not everything, but you can, get yourself a lot farther on your own from now on. So I think this is very cool that I mean, for bus companies, this opens so much in terms of optimization, in terms of maybe potential upsells, or in terms of branching out into new services, because until now they had a team of people that had to manage, that had to, calculate when the bus is going to get there, and how many people are in there, and is that efficient enough? How many tickets were sold that day per each bus, per each route? So now it's all in a single dashboard, and you don't even have to have the drivers anymore. So this is really, really,
Exactly.
really interesting. Yeah, I mean, when we talk about autonomous vehicles, the thing that intrigues me most is the trucking part and the transportation part. So, I mean, we let's say if we live in a large city, we will not see a large truck come by. We just won't. But there's thousands and millions of them, and thousands and millions of truckers who do 12, 14, 15, 16 hours a day. And it's just their life. That's their life. They just drive on the road, and this is something that could change this so much, that I'm wondering what are they gonna do. And I
Yeah.
think this is a topic for a completely different discussion.
Yeah.
And maybe something, someone from culture department could be a good fit to talk with this to talk about it.
Yeah.
But for now, I would like to
It's
add
for a
you
different
one
podcast.
more
That's
thing.
not us.
One more thing, because another thing that your company does is retrofitting. You retrofit vehicles. So
Yeah,
basically, if I have of let's say 10 Mercedes buses,
yeah,
I call BrightDrive. I say, okay, guys, I need 10 autonomous Mercedes buses. So you never force the company to buy a new vehicle. Am I correct? So you just,
yes.
give us what you got and we'll work with it.
Exactly.
That
And
kind of
this
mentality.
is basically one of the best things that we have. So this is basically a quite a strong advantage for us that we are not really constrained to specific type of vehicle. Any type of vehicle we can basically convert or retrofit to be autonomous.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen that with a few of the people we've already talked to. We have he's called Andreas Pfeiffer. He's a CEO of a company called 20. He's retrofitting diesel buses in Germany. Uh, I mean, they're not autonomous, but they're full electric, and the ROI is proven.
Yep.
So we see that this is kind of working, and this is really cool. And which
Yeah, thank you so much. This was an amazing conversation with Mahmoud Serour. And yeah, we hope to have you again for you to update us on your progress of your new plans, of your new partnerships. Whatever you come up with, we would love to host you again. And yeah, just overall had a great conversation. A lot of inside information that our listeners I think are gonna love. So yeah, subscribe to the Charging Stack, and we'll see you soon again. Thank you, Mahmoud.